Let's do it.
You ready?
Yeah. Welcome to the Hardheaded podcast, brought to you by Admiral's Pennant Beard Oil. The best beard oil that I put on my face. Order some today to keep your beard glorious through the driest time of year. Admiral's Pennant, owned by our host, Matt Amos.
Boom.
I am Chet Sears, and we've got Troy Trussell, a.k.a. 3-Shot, with us today.
Hello. It's good to be here.
Good to be here. Episode 1. So, to our listeners, just to kind of let you know how we do things around here, we're going to cover a few things. First of all, we're going to kind of cover what's on our mind, what's going on today that we want to talk about. Hopefully it's relevant to what you're dealing with or want to know about or want to gripe about possibly. Then we'll go into a top 3 segment. You may have seen some of that flying around on social media. Today we're going to cover our top 3 books.
Top 3 books.
That's going to be pretty fun. And then Troy's going to finish off with a good word discussion to encourage you, and hopefully we'll have leave on a high note and bring something to you that you find value for listening to us. So I'm glad you joined us today.
So let me just recap. We're going to do 3 segments.
That's right.
What's on your mind?
Yes.
A top 3.
A top 3.
And then a good word.
And then a good word.
Or an inspiring story. Or
something very positive after all of the hard-headed complaining.
And Troy's on the hook for that today, so
bam,
gonna have to set the tone.
Set the tone.
All right, Matt. What's on your mind, man?
I'll tell you what. I've been going through and looking at because it was trying to come up with what was on my mind, right? Because I'm a Marine, and 90% of the time my mind's blank.
Somebody has to tell you what's on your mind.
So stop eating crayons long enough to put some thoughts through my head. So I guess kind of currently what we're looking at is the stimulus package. That's kind of been on my mind, and what's been going on with all this money, the trillions of dollars that we're spending, and what we're actually getting for our money. Mm-hmm. And so I really haven't gotten that deep into it, but I see all these other countries getting money, or all these groups, and I've seen my friends on both sides of the aisle talking about it, and they're all upset with the money and where it's going.
I think that's something that's pretty common. Like I've been hearing from some of my friends as well. Just tired of spending money on stuff like I don't know what, $35 million to gender studies in Pakistan or something. I mean, just some ridiculous things. We're spending way too much.
Yeah, and another one of my friends who I consider very intelligent, posted on there that
you're gonna have. Is that me or Troy?
Neither one of you actually, but he was on there.
He said intelligent.
Is that because we're not friends or we're not intelligent?
Both.
Both.
But he was like, it was the Kennedy Space Center, and how they got, I think it was 25 or 35 million in the first package, and then that was to keep them open, and now they're getting another 25 million, but they've closed.
Performing Arts Center. Yeah, the Kennedy Center. It's at the end of it's toward the river down in Washington D.C. Yeah, so not even having to do with space. It's literally a performing arts center.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. So they got so many millions in the first stimulus that came out, and they're backing them up again with another 40 million or so. They've been closed since then. Yeah.
Right, but I think it was 25 on the next.
Yeah.
I mean, but
ridiculous.
That's terrible.
What are we doing? And then we're gonna give people that have been out of work $600.
Yeah. So let's talk about that from a being out of work perspective. A lot of the people that are out of work because people have told them that you've got to shut down. So you've got a business, Matt, web-based, doesn't matter, how that goes. And Troy, you've got a business as well, but you do a lot of interacting with clients. How's your experience been from, when did things start ramping up? February, March to now? Have you seen some fluctuation there?
Yeah, a lot of the fluctuation comes within different industries that I work with. So I videographer, do a lot of video, used to do a lot with weddings and live events. Of course, when COVID hit, those went down. Other industries like real estate and that sort of thing went up. So
you kind of had to shift your model.
I had to shift the model from, okay, we do weddings and live events to now we do, hey, we'll come do YouTube videos for your business, or we'll come do real estate videos, all those types of things. So yeah. I didn't really see too much heartache through it all, but I know a lot of people out there did.
Yeah,
so.
Had to be nimble with that.
Right.
Yeah. So that's that's impacted us all. So, and now we're talking about a stimulus bill where more money is going outside the country than going towards people, where some state and local governments have decided to shut down the people's ability to make money.
Yeah. I mean, and it's beyond that. I mean, you look at just all of the small businesses around the area and how much those millions of dollars would impact those small businesses that may operate on $200,000 or $300,000 a year. How much could we funnel to them in order to keep them open? Because, you know, I see it a lot. Everybody thinks of small businesses, you know, and then they think millions and millions of dollars a year on these small businesses. And that a lot of the times is not the case. You know, I mean, these people are, you know, they're bringing in $300,000 a year, but they're only able to take home maybe 50, you know, maybe 20, you know, depending on what products they need to buy. And as shipping from China and everything slows, their you know, retail side is not getting the product that they need. And, you know, it's bad all over. And so I've kind of been thinking that's kind of what's been on my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just wish everybody get out of everybody's way and let us make some decisions for the health and safety of our families and move on.
Exactly.
Agreed.
That would be really nice if we could do that. But we're not doing that. Not yet, anyway. So, top three.
Top three books.
I'm going to give a caveat here, and I'm going to speak for myself. I'm going to speak for all three of us here. We're going to talk about our top three books. I think the caveat being we're not mentioning the Bible in our top three because that would be one of all of our top threes.
I mean, it is the number one selling book
of all time.
Of all time.
Every year.
Yeah, every year since you could print books.
Yeah. So that's our top book, but we're going to give a list of three other books other than God's holy word. So, Troy, why don't you kick us off with your list here?
All right, good deal. So, the top three books of all time in my experience, from my vantage point, right? Because I did Google top 10 books of all time, and my three weren't on there. So
that doesn't surprise me.
Right. Okay.
My three wouldn't be on there either.
Well, good.
You know, and what was it? Curious George Goes to the Zoo. Strangely enough, didn't make it. So
yeah. Well, they don't have coloring books on there either.
No, unfortunately.
All right, number three, I'm going to have to go with Great Expectations by Charles Dickens.
Okay.
The one and only.
Books we've read.
I have read this book.
Okay. All right.
So, well, reading is listening too, because we're in the audiobook age.
All right.
Okay. So, quick story. I listened to this book being read to me in 7th grade. My 7th grade English teacher.
Like a record player?
No, he verbally read it to every class that went through his 7th grade English class.
Is that all that you did?
For however many years he
how
taught
many weeks did it take?
Oh gosh, we read he probably read 20 to 30 minutes a day.
Oh.
In the English class. And English, it was a first hour for 2 hours, I think. So he took 20, 30 minutes and read part of the book until it was done. So, but it was really good. It's a really good book about little Pip. And
it's been forever since I've even heard of that book. Now the movie came out and I couldn't even get through the movie.
Well, there's been a lot of renditions of putting it in modern times and that kind of, that's just ridiculous.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Not going to argue with you on that.
Number 2. Do you know an author named Dean Koontz?
Yep.
I do.
Very good. One of my favorite books he has written is called Dragon Tears.
Okay.
It was written in 1993. I read it that same year when I was a freshman in high school. And just, it was probably one of the first like thriller horror books that I'd ever read. And he had this one character that could freeze time. And so he would freeze time all around him and go after the main character. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So
I think Watchers was one of the first books in his line of books that I've read.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that book.
Yeah, cool.
I don't think I ever read that one, but so yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was Dean Koontz. I'm pretty sure it was.
All right. And then the top one of my favorite books that I've ever read is The Hobbit.
Yep.
By Tolkien. So I loved it. I read it young. I read it at a later age, and now I've started reading it to my kids. So I don't think the movies go along with that book very well at all, but it's a great read.
I kind of feel the movies were a money grab, cash grab.
Oh yeah,
Like why spread it out to 3? I
Like-
agree with the Lord of the Rings trilogy needing to be a trilogy, but
Correct.
yeah, Hobbit's like, hey, we can make three movies.
Yeah, Legolas. He's not even in the book, but he was in the movie. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So, all right, Matt.
Those are your top 3, huh?
That's it.
I like it. It's better than your top 3 Christmas movies. We'll put it that way, because when he started, I was like going back to the Muppets when he was talking about the Muppets.
Yeah. The Emmett Otter's Jug Band.
Still a great movie.
Whatever it was. Still have not seen it.
I can't believe it, man.
It's been a whole week. So my top 3 books, and I'm kind of with you on the audiobook trend, and it's specifically because, and I don't know if it's because of my injury and the traumatic brain injury that came with it, I cannot sit and read and concentrate. And that just, I mean, I don't know if it's age because I'm 40 now or what happens, but I literally can't focus. So my top 3, I'm going back a little bit to prior to some of those audiobooks. But I'm going to say number 1 for me is probably going to be White Jacket by Herman Melville. And you wouldn't think a guy like me would be reading Melville, and I never thought a guy like me would be reading that other than Moby Dick because we had to read it back in school.
Assignment.
But, when I was coming up with a name for Admiral's Pennant, I knew I had this company and I didn't know what I wanted it called. And so my brother said, well, I think Melville wrote something about beards in this book, White Jacket. And so I ordered the book and got it in and read it, and I opened it up. And then all of a sudden, in the very first couple of chapters, he's talking about being in the Port of Callao, Peru, back in like back in the 1780s. And I can't remember the exact date, but looking at that, and I'm like, well, I've been on a Navy ship in the Port of Callao, Peru. And so just in the first chapter, that's when it sold me. And then they have an entire chapter that talks about, they'd been at sea for 3 years or something like that. And all these guys had grown out these awesome beards. And then it talks about the captain of the ship coming down saying, hey, we're getting ready to come into port. You guys need to shave, or trim those beards. And so they were almost ready to go full mutiny on this ship over having to trim their beards. And so really interesting book. And it just tied a lot to me personally, just with the service in the Marine Corps and the Navy and our stories kind of crossing paths, almost 200 and some odd, 220, 240 years apart.
And he lists all the different, there's a whole bunch of names.
Yeah. I mean,
including Admiral's Pennant.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a bunch of different names for the beards and Admiral's Pennant was one of them. And I was like, boom, that's perfect for this company. So I would have to say, just from a kind of an inspiration standpoint, that's probably number 1 for me. Yeah.
And an awesome logo too.
Yeah. We can thank my brother for that as well. I mean, basically he designed the company, came up with, the name for me almost because he's hand fed me the book. And then he's just a heck of a lot more creative than I am.
Right.
I don't have that ability. And then I would say number 2 would be the Last Undercover by Bob Hamer.
Yep.
A retired FBI agent, and good news actually is we have got this guy coming on a future podcast.
Yeah, he's a great author. I've read all of his fiction books, and The Last Undercover kind of actually talks about his time in the FBI. 26
years.
26 years in the FBI. A lot of those working as an undercover agent. And this book is a little gnarly, though. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's not. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. I mean, and that's why it's called The Last Undercover, is because it was his last case as an FBI agent, and the toll that it took on him mentally. He goes, it's probably one of the least physically challenging cases that he's had, but mentally it was the most challenging that he's ever had, because he had to play an undercover pedophile and infiltrate a pedophile ring and then bring these guys down. And some of the things that he saw and heard while he was in there just took that mental toll on him. So,
Wow.
I think when we bring him on, I mean, we'll be asking some of those questions, and then I think he's going to have some really good tips for us on how to keep our kids and families safe in this new digital age, because he's just got a wealth of
God bless
information on
him
that.
and all other people that can fill that gap and have good people doing being in a really dark place to help protect us.
Absolutely. And then
Sounds like I've got some reading to do.
it's an incredible book. I mean, you should really check it out. And then his nonfiction stuff is incredible as well. Yeah. And I remember
his fiction stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, it's the fiction side. So on the when I was reading Last Undercover, so that's been probably, his books are some of the only ones that I can actually focus on. Mm-hmm. But I was really able to focus on this book because I did read it. Actually turned pages and read lines. So I didn't audiobook it because I was up in the Yukon hunting moose. And it was completely dead quiet. There was no interruptions. Every now and again, a wolf would howl, and that would interrupt me a little bit. But other than that, I finished that book while I was up there. And I mean, it was a neat read to be, especially when you're that remote. So that was number 2. For number 3, I'm going to have to go with The Old Breed on Peleliu and Okinawa. And
never heard of it.
So this book was written by Eugene Sledge, and it was part of the inspiration for The Pacific. So the miniseries of The Pacific.
Yeah, I got you. So HBO miniseries?
Yep. So it's the book about the island hopping campaign that he went through. And it's kind of a first person account with accounts from the guys that he served with. Mm-hmm. And if I remember right, I think they were 3.5 Kilo Company, and I was, many years down the line, 1.5. But that generation of warriors always captivates me because my grandfather was a World War II veteran.
Yep. Both mine, in the Pacific as well.
Yep. And see, my grandfather was landing on Omaha Beach on D-Day back, what was that, June 11th, 1940, was it 4?
Man, you're asking the wrong person, but I'm pretty sure.
I think that's what it was. But strange, maybe happenstance is I was actually blown up on
the same date.
June 6th is actually what it was.
Yeah.
But reading books about those guys and what they had to endure, and then looking at our current service members and what we have to deal with, I mean, we have got it a heck of a lot better in a lot of ways, and I'm thankful to serve in the time that I was able to serve, because I look back at those guys and think, man, those guys were hardcore.
Well, I mean, the reality of the injury that you went through was not survivable then.
No, right? I probably wouldn't be here for sure.
Yeah. So, well, cool, man. Pretty good books. I've got some pretty neat ones too. Kind of tough. There's a few that didn't make the cut. My first favorite book, Last of the Breed by Louis L'Amour. It's about an Air Force pilot that's in some experimental aircraft that gets shot down over Russia, and he gets captured and then escapes from a prison camp and decides to use his Native American heritage and all the stuff that his elders taught him as far as living in the wilderness to come back to the U.S. via the land bridge over the Bering Strait. So like his ancestors did. And he's got there's a Russian that's tracking him that has just as much knowledge as him. It's a pretty cool book. Really, really neat. Kind of a chase book, which uses a lot of outdoor stuff. I actually learned quite a bit from that. Another one, definitely a nonfiction book, 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. It's the most recent one on my list. Fantastic. It's a lot of psychology that's in there, but basically 12 things that you should be doing in your life, and gets into some of the reasons that we don't do some of those areas. It's fascinating. Literally talking about how studies are that if your dog gets a prescription from the vet, that the odds are that you will give the dog everything that's prescribed. There's greater odds of that happening than when you get a prescription for your doctor, you actually taking all the prescription that's there. You may stop taking it when you feel better, but for your dog, you're going to make sure they get everything they have there. Dives into stuff like that on why that we treat ourselves more poorly than we do the others that we care for. Lots of stuff. So very valuable. It's one of those that, for me, I read it, have to put it down, think about it for a little while, come back, read some of the same passages I just read because it didn't sit with my mind, just a little too tough. And so it takes me a long time to get through it, but fascinating book. And then my favorite all time, and a friend of mine, David, turned me on to this guy. Peter Capstick wrote, he's written several books, but his first one, Death in the Long Grass. And so this was a professional guide in a couple different continents, but this one is specifically about Africa. And every chapter, like there's a chapter just called Elephants. And in the chapter about elephants, it's all the ways that he's seen people die due to that animal. So elephants, lions, wow. The water buffalo, all the stuff. Fascinating. And then you learn a lot about what those professional guides go through. They're on call basically. So they may have a client that they're out there with, and he'll get a call over the radio that in some village, he's the nearest guide that's professional guide that's near this village, but they just had a lion come in and kill somebody in the village. Then it's his job then to take, we're done here, we're going, and we've got to go hunt this lion. We've got to go get this man-eater. Just a fascinating book. And it's gory and gross, and some of the animals that you look at and you're like, oh, that's a beautiful, there's a chapter on it in his book, and there's a whole lot of ways that those animals have killed people. So something that's really neat, and you just stay glued to it. Because you can't believe all the crazy stories that are out there and how close he's come to dying, how many people that have been right next to him that died. Just fascinating. And nature is powerful.
That's one of those books that you told me to read that I'm wanting to read, and I just haven't done it yet. Maybe that's another top 3 is books we would like to read or should read.
Or just go do it and then don't let it be on your list. Come on, man.
I mean, it's kind of like the New Year's thing, you get about only 20% of the people complete their New Year's list.
Yeah.
It may be, who knows, maybe in 2021.
Well, maybe I'll just, since Matt and I work together, I could just play the audiobook out loud on my speakers.
Ooh, you could do that. Yeah. I could listen to it.
Maybe that'd be a fantastic thing to do.
Perfect.
Listen while you work. Huh?
If you can call what he does work.
Oh, I work real hard. All right, let's take a break.
And we're back.
We're back.
What's next, hardheads?
Hey, you're going to give us a good word, Troy.
You are on the hook for a good word for today.
All right. Well, I heard a good word today, actually. I've heard it more than once, but I heard someone say, read the red letters. Do we know what the red letters are?
I think the 3 people sitting at this table know what the red letters are.
Probably so. But if you don't know, if you're listening, you don't know what the red letters are, the red letters in the Bible are when Jesus speaks. Mm-hmm. And so if you want to know what Jesus says, you read the red letters.
Yeah.
And so I have a verse here that is in red. It's Matthew 19:26 that says, "But Jesus looked at them and said, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." So, and that speaks to me.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely, man. That's pretty awesome. And it kind of gets down to the, what would Jesus do? What did Jesus say? Very obvious to just thumb through there and you could see exactly what he's saying and when he's saying it.
Yeah, and the red letters just speak about who he is, who he was, what he did, how he taught, all those things. So
and what you can do.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, thank you for that, Troy.
And so, if you're thumbing through a Bible in a hotel, it's probably not going to have those red letters.
Oh, that's true.
Not all of them have it. That's the Gideons put out the hotel Bibles.
Yes.
Yep.
But they do not have red letters.
Okay. I did not know that. I was not aware of that.
Well, if they don't have them, most of the red letters.
If they don't have them, you're just going to have to read the whole thing.
There you go.
Start in Matthew.
Yeah.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John are where most of the red letters are. So.
Yep. Well, good deal, man. Thanks.
You're welcome.
All right. We'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. We'll be back with another episode next week, and have a wonderful time. Hope you go out and get some books to read. And I hope they were from my top 3 and none of the other guys.
Yeah, and if you have some top 3s, feel free to share them with us on any of our channels that we're on.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen, to Hardheaded, the ultimate podcast that you can listen to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all of your podcasting outlets. You can also see us on YouTube. If you want to see us live in action, check us out on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, ring that bell so you can get updated when we release more content.
Subscribe has to be the hardest word.
Subscribe.
All right.
All right. We'll see you next week. We're out.